Hello, family. It's Rosalind again. So you know what that means. That means it's time for real talk now. College planning. College planning, those are words that's foreign to some. It's foreign to some because many families are not equipped with the necessary information to make the dream of a good college education a reality. Some families make provisions for their children to have a college education, but others, they're not as fortunate. They're not able to be able to afford a good college education. Unfortunately, being one of the wealthiest countries in the world, the US educational system does not make provisions for its citizens. Let's be real. Be real about it. College is very expensive, and in many instances, only the privileged are able to attend. My guest tonight, Mr. Anthony Weeks, will give us a glimpse of a blueprint that can be followed to help in the planning process from kindergarten to career. My friend, what I ask you to do is to please educate us on what is needed to begin or to continue the planning process for college. But as we're doing that, I want us to meditate on Second Chronicles 7:14, and I will allow Anthony to let us know why that is dear to his heart.
That is my favorite scripture in all the Bible because God says, if my people that are called by my name, see, when we say that, the Bible says that those in the Lord say so, right? Those for the Lord say so. And so when we're called by God's name, that's a powerful thing. And so we should act a certain way. We should be a certain way if we are called by God's name. But that calls for some humility and some other things that's in that verse in order for us to please God. So that's why that's my favorite scripture in the whole Bible. And so as I go into this, Raj, I'm so thankful that you invited me to this panel. I am so excited because we are in the midst of a tsunami right now with our children. And let me back up a little bit. How do I get? People ask me all the time. How did I get into this? I call it a mission or ministry. How did I get involved in college planning for children? How this came about is many years ago, about 25 years ago, I began serving as a campus minister on many of the college campuses around the country in Florida and South Carolina, and now here in Georgia. And I saw that students that were in college, many of them, even though they were even in college, had no reason, they had no idea of how they got there or what they were supposed to do to stay there. They did not have a clue of what it took to be successful in terms of what I call the college game, okay? I also worked as a substitute teacher, as a teacher in a private school in Columbia, South Carolina some years ago. And these students were paying $10,000 a semester to go to the school, and yet they had no idea. They were not teaching them in that school setting, you know, what it took to go to college. So they were still without information regarding college preparation, and that was a travesty. But the thing that really caught my attention was I worked for the Department of Juvenile Justice for many years in South Carolina, again, Columbia, South Carolina, and so many children around the state were being brought to this prison. It was literally a prison. They were locked up. And some of those children were as young as 8 years old, and yet they were giving up on their hopes and their dreams. They were being told that they were even called, even the fact they were being called a juvenile, and instilled in them a sense of hopelessness. And in the midst of all of that, I said something had to be done to cultivate an environment and cultivate some hope in our children. So over the years, I began to meet with many educators from near and far to come up with a strategy. I read a lot of books I met with a lot of professionals, superintendents of schools. I did all I could to begin to put something together to be able to create a platform where our children can have some hope. And in 2002, around January of 2002, I launched what's now being called came to be known as College Planning Today Services. And Lord knows, it was a lot of trial and error. You know, sometimes we beat up people that's trying to do something. And so I started with insurance, trying to get money from insurance companies, because a lot of people do not understand that one insurance company can have more value in money than 100 banks. People don't know that. There's a lot of money in insurance companies. So I was meeting with these insurance companies to fund college planning and funding for students to go to college. And that worked out very, very well. But there were still other things we need to do to help students. So we had to go back to pre-K. You know, we have to start in the home. We have to start, and one of the things that was great about insurance is that I had a chance to talk with many of the parents who had little babies that showed them how to plan for their future. We have to really begin to set monies aside to be able to help our children, because think about all the money you're spending every Christmas. Every Christmas, you spend a lot of money on toys and things that the children don't even remember them by February. They're under the bed somewhere. And yet, that's money that you could at least put aside to plan for their future. So in College Planning Today Services, we start in pre-K, working with the schools, working with the parents to show parents what they need to do to plan for your child's future. Okay, it starts in the beginning. Now, I know some saying, well, I didn't start that early, so what about later? Listen, we have a program throughout the whole duration, because listen, we have what's called a 10-step process. Now, in the beginning, we have this nice booklet. Remember I said we talked about the future? My Future, My Way. We have booklets to educate your children on things that they need to do. It's a lot of nice things, and I can't really get into all the stuff that's in this book, but they have a lot of things on careers and all kind of information. Now, these books are put out by the Department of Education. I'm licensed with the Department of Education, okay? So I want you to know that I'm trained and certified with the Department of Education. So I want to make sure that we keep in step with at least meeting the requirements of each state in our federal government in terms of what our children need and what's required for them to be successful. So this is on the elementary up to the middle school age. We have booklets to educate our children in terms of college preparation. We also have these booklets called the College Checklist. Okay, I'm gonna get more into this in a few minutes, but we have the College Checklist. But what's more impressive about our program, Sister Roz, is that we have what's called a 10-step process. We call it from conversation to career. We call it from conversation to career. And we say conversation because many times when we meet people, we don't know anything about your child. You know, people in the grocery store, they may see me because they've seen me speak at a church. They may have seen me do a workshop with a college or whatever. And they say, you know, start talking to me about their children, but I don't know your child. You know, we can have a conversation, but I don't know your child. How we get to know your child is in the second step of our 10-step process, which is called the interview. In the interview process, we ask everything from your child's name all the way to their GPA, standardized test. We go over all of this information, and we talk to the students, and we also interview the parents, and we bring them together. Which is unique in these times because a lot of parents and children they're not talking to each other, especially about things like college and finances. So we come together in the second phase of our program called the interview process. Colleges and universities are elated with that because when we send a student to them, we've already done the work that they don't do. Okay, it's not about just filling. Many colleges have maybe a college recruiter come and you fill out a form and you get some general information about that child, but you don't get the information that we pull out. Okay, and so colleges and universities love that about our company, and we send literally thousands of students to college every year from this program. Okay, the third part of our program is called the roadmap. That's right. In the roadmap, we attach a college student or a mentor to that student, so that they can have a hands-on experience with someone that's already in college, so they'll be able to ask questions. But here's the kicker. We also offer them a portal. A portal is where all the information goes in and have information about the student in terms of scholarships, in terms of a to-do list, things they need to be doing. They kind of give them a roadmap and a checklist of things that they need to be doing along the way. Because face it, folks, this is a very tedious process, and this is why many people are hiring professionals. You did it with your taxes, right? You hire a professional to do your taxes because, of course, you can do your taxes on your own. But many people have realized that getting a professional cuts out a lot of the busy work and get down to the grand roots of saving money or even making some money, right? And so we have the roadmap as a part of our service. And in that roadmap, we decide we help you in terms of making recommendations. Sometimes we recommend that your child start off in a community college. That's right. You know, here your child is all geared up to go to a 4-year state-supported college that costs $200,000, and we say, hey, look, based on your grades, based on the fact that you are not mentally ready right now to go into a huge environment like that, you know, let's start out a little smaller, okay? And it'll help you kind of gradually get into the college experience. And also, you can save a ton of money by going to a community college that you don't have. How about that? You know, our president right now, our current president, President Biden, he and the legislators are working on a bill right now. I don't know if it's going to pass or not, but it'd be certainly great if it does. They're working on legislation to send students to school for 2 years for free. If you go to a community college, you can go absolutely free. How does that sound? And certainly, you should consider that if that bill passes, because guess what? You will go to college in your 3rd year debt free. You go into college, you've been in college for 2 years, and when you go to your 3rd year of college, guess what? You debt free. How does that sound when the average student has $37,000 in student loan debt? I was telling Sister Roz, I said, you know, the average student right now runs out of money for college the first semester of their 3rd year of college. They simply run out of money. And many times they call us and they say, listen, my name is such and such and such, and I heard about your company and I need help. I'm currently in college and I need help. And we say, let me guess, you in your first semester of your 3rd year of college. They're like, how do you know? Because we've been doing this for over 20 years. So we know, we know, we've been working at this for a long time. And so we know these things, okay? And so that's the 3rd step of our program. The 4th phase of our program is called academics. That's right, academics. Academics is critical because it's not all about grades. Grades are important, that you get a great, you know, that you're on the honor society of doing great with your GPA. But let me tell you this, that's a myth that that's all it takes. There are literally thousands of students right now in college that have 4.0 GPA that their parents are paying out of their pockets. You know why? Because they did not plan and prepare to go to college. That's why we're here right now. You need to plan to go to college. It's called college preparation. There's an organization that's been around since the year 1900. That's right. There's an organization that's been around since the year 1900. You know what that organization's called? It's called College Board. Have you heard of College Board before? College Board, we call them the mafia of schools because they are in everything. They are in the curriculum of schools. That's why when you take those AP classes or those IB classes, you take those advanced placement classes, guess what? That has something to do with the College Board. When you take the SAT, test, guess what? That's College Board. College Board is involved in that process. Did you know that if you don't take at least 4 to 5 AP classes when you are in high school, we encourage you not to take the SAT. Why? Because those curriculums, those tedious, that cultivation for that test is accumulated through those courses and AP classes. And when you have not had that exposure, you put yourself at a greater risk of not doing very well in those classes. We hear that all the time. Which test should my student take? Should my child take the ACT, or should they take the SAT? Again, that is contingent on what I just told you.
I'm just saying wow. Yeah, I'm just saying wow here because
Okay.
you know, that's something. Okay. You want to continue? I can start asking questions if you like, or if
You
you
can
want to.
start asking questions. I'm going to go through the next steps in a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of stop there and kind of let us address maybe some of the things I've said. I know I've said a lot.
Wow, no, but you said some good stuff. Definitely, because this is so needed. You know, it's just so needed because many of us did not understand about the college planning. Because when I went to school, when I went to college, grad school, and undergrad and grad school, I did not realize the steps that were involved in the actual planning process. It was like trial and error for me. We did better with the children,
Okay.
but better with the second one as opposed to the first one because we still didn't get it, but we did better, you know.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the thing is that, you know, what if a person come to you, and I think you kind of hit on this, and their child's age is they're older than kindergarten. They may be close to getting ready to go to college, and they've realized, okay, hold on, we can't get them there. We can't. Is that too late, or can you still step in and help them at that point?
We get that question all the time, Roz. To answer your question, we take students wherever they are. You know, they come to us in the 5th grade. They come to us sometime in the 9th grade. A lot of times students are going to go to high schools. Parents are like, okay, my child is getting to high school now. I need to do something. I need to get them ready. And believe it or not, we've got students that were a week away from graduation from high school. And parents call us in panic mode because they're about to graduate and they have absolutely nothing in place. And so we take them all the way. We have students in master's programs, bachelor's programs, and PhD programs. So we take students wherever they are. It doesn't matter. We call it from GED to PhD. We help them wherever they are because, you know, like I say, I'm an educator. And one of the things I've always told teachers that we can't put all students in one box. And certainly if we're going to be a company that's educating people, we have to practice what we preach. And so each student, that's why we do that interview, because each student is an individual. And so we have to find out what is the learning style of that student, what is the dreams and aspirations of that student, and then work to make that happen.
I'm so glad to hear that because, like you said, we can't lump children in a box in one category. That's the same with their education. We can't assume that all children learn the same. So I'm glad you said that we have to treat them on the individual, that you have to treat them on the individualized basis. Now, developing a game plan that will get you to your goal, that's a great idea. But do you think it's, or do you all think it's a good idea, or do you start at the end and then work your way back? And you know what I'm saying? You look at the big picture first and then develop these smaller steps. And, you know, tell me give us a little idea of how exactly you do that.
In the Bible, they call that foreknowledge. You know, God has that where he knows ahead and whatever. But what we simply do is that because we've been doing this so long, we know what the college is looking for. It's like playing a game of spades. You know, I know a lot of church folks.
Kind of losing you a little
say,
bit.
Huh? A lot of church folk understand about card games, right? A lot of church folks talk about card games and everything like that. But here's the situation. The goal is not to let people know what's in your hand. That's the goal, to not let them know what's in your hand. And so the bottom line is we show them the process from the beginning to the end so that they are not caught off guard. And that's one of the tricks that many have we call it the college game. The government knows what's going on, and the colleges know, but the problem is you don't know. And so that's one of the things that we do. We work with you to show you how to play the game, because this college game is really, really, really serious. And it costs people literally tens of thousands of dollars in lost revenue to prepare for their children to go to college when they don't know how the situation works. So one of the things that we do, again, to answer your question, is that we work on We work individually, we work step by step, but we work on a whole scope. We do the whole scope. We look ahead and prepare as they go along. I don't know if I lost you. I don't see you on here. We have some technical difficulties at the moment. I don't know if you are still seeing me on Facebook or not. I'm not sure. But anyway, if you have any questions so far, and if you're on Facebook and you have questions for me, feel free to chat. To put your questions in the chat box. I'm going to continue. I'm not sure, just in case we are still on. I'm going to continue. One of the challenges that we have, and students have been out of school for a year and a half, and a lot of students do not have access to the internet. Maybe they don't have a computer or what have you, and some just in schools where they were already behind in the first place. One of the things that we're doing, we're working with the communities, we're working with organizations to work as a village to encourage students, to encourage them to work with their parents. And again, with materials like this, we have a college checklist that we can help to work to prepare them in terms of what they need to do. For example, if a student is a junior in high school, for example, if a student is a junior in high school, one of the things that we tell them on page 15 of this book, many students miss out on literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. They miss out because usually in these merit scholarships, they give full rides to college. And for some students, that's $200,000, okay? On page 15 of this book, for 11th graders, this is in the fall. This is in the fall of the school year, okay? In the fall of the school year, notice on page 15 of this book that we hand out now we need to go to workshops, we go to schools, we go to churches, and in many places, sometimes the administrators be walking out the back door because they didn't tell the parents this, and parents get a little heat sometimes. Parents get a little upset. But listen, on page 15 of the book, it says, take the PSAT, the NMSQT. You must take this test in the 11th grade to qualify for scholarship programs associated with the National Merit Scholarship Program. It says you must do this. And there are many students that are in schools where they do not have them take the test in the 11th grade. When they do that, they are automatically disqualified. You may have a student that would have done well on the test and they could have gotten a full ride to college, but because someone did not give them that information, it cost them as much as $200,000. This is why college preparation is very important. This is why college preparation is worth getting, because you find out information saves you tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so this is why it's so critical to be able to have information. Information is truly power. Good to see you back, Roz. Okay, good to see you back, Roz. I know I lost you for a minute. Do you have another question for me? Okay, I think we have some technical difficulties.
Planning process must be reevaluated or changed. And I say this because, sometimes we look at these changes as setbacks, but they're not actually setbacks, but sometimes they're just opportunities to reevaluate things.
Okay, so your question is being able to reevaluate stuff?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. My internet for some is a little unstable today. It's not usually like that, but you know what? We're going to keep this going. The question I have is that, sometimes kids may get a little disillusioned, or they may get a little frustrated actually because, things don't
Your mic just went out again, but I think I got your question. Yes, sometimes students are, a little yeah, sometimes students are a little delusional about how this process works. We had a student some years ago that was told he was going to Harvard. Let me give you an example. There was a student that we went into his school. We tried to work with him, but someone told him that he was going to Harvard, that he was going to go to Harvard. Now, there were certain rubrics that we looked at that said that would be a little challenging for him to do that. But of course, we don't tell any student what they can't do. That's not what we're in the business of doing. We just enhance students' ability to do what they need to do. Now, so this young student, he was, very determined to go to Harvard. And so we said, okay, but in the midst of that, because we looked at his SAT scores, we looked at his GPA, we looked at other factors, and because we work with all of these colleges, we work with Harvard, we work with Princeton, we work with all of these schools, we work with HBCUs, we work with Florida A&M University and Howard and North Carolina A&T and Hampton and all. We work with all of these schools, right? So we know what they're looking for. Okay, we know what these colleges are looking for. We call them the benchmarks. We look at the benchmarks of what these schools are looking for. Okay, and so we told the young man, well, listen, okay, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about whether or not you can go to Harvard. What we want to do is give you some options. So we brought in some options for him. We brought in administrators from other colleges and universities. We had scholarships for him as much as $100,000 for him to go to some HBCUs that we brought in. And yet this young man, he turned it down. He turned down every option that we gave to him because in his mind, he was told that he was going to go to Harvard. And Harvard was basically, if I don't go to Harvard, I'm not going to do anything with my life. And so he didn't get into Harvard, and he didn't get into any other schools because he didn't take advantage of the opportunities that we had presented to him. So we get that too. And let me say this quickly. Many times people think that we are magicians. We're not magicians. We work with what you bring to us. So if you bring a student to us with a 1.5 GPA and they want to go to a college that requires a 2.5 or a 3.0, there's some work that has to be done. And we don't go to school for the student. We help you enhance what you bring to us. So sometimes even parents get that kind of confused too, or get it sidetracked because we don't do any illegal. It's another thing you heard about in California where these people went to jail. Out in California some years ago, they had hired this college recruiter, and he was going in there and having people change grades and all this kind of stuff. We don't do that kind of stuff. We don't do illegal. Everything we do must be according to state and federal regulations. Okay, so we don't do anything that's illegal. We only do that which is within line with what's available. Okay.
Okay. I have two questions from the audience. The first is about they want you to post the material in the chat box. I know you can't do that, but make sure he's going to give his information. Everybody, he's going to give the information how you can get in touch with him, and he will also, if you could, mention the title of the book or the material that they're mentioning. Because he can, yeah. And also we have a listener who's saying that every state and school district is different. And where can their students start? What can they do now? Their student is a senior in high school. I think they missed what you were saying earlier about you meet them where they are. Okay, Can you kind of address that question? Because like she said, schools, they're different.
Okay, let me address the first one. The first book was My Future, My Way. Okay, my future, my way, because we got to put these children in the driver's seat. Okay, My Future, My Way, and we usually use this book from pre-K all the way up to middle school. My Future, My Way. Okay, and the second booklet that I showed was the College Preparation Checklist. The College Preparation Checklist. It's a checklist for dues for the student and dues for the parents. Okay. So hopefully I answered that. And I didn't even show this one, but this is also talking about the concept of student loans and how to address student loans, okay? The second question was asked about school districts are different. I'm so thankful for that question. You are absolutely right. That's why we have representatives. We go into different states. We have representatives in different states. We cross state lines. For example, I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I grew up in District School 1. We are a vendor in that city. We go to schools all around South Carolina. We do events all around South Carolina, but also we have an office in Charlotte, North Carolina. We do business all in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Florida. I went to college in Florida. I was in Florida 2 weeks ago in Florida doing work. In other words, we work with whatever state you're in. Whatever state you're in, we meet with the superintendents and the educators in that state to make sure we have a plan for you according to that state. So hopefully I answered your question.
I think you did. I think you did. And again, everybody, he's going to give his information again, but you can also reach out to me and we'll tell you all of that at the end, just in case you didn't get everything, because like he said, it is a lot of information that we are saying, but just
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Did you hear everything I was saying?
Yeah, it froze up a little bit, but we're gonna keep going. Okay.
Yeah, we having problems tonight, but you know that's how the unstableness of the internet. But like you said, we're gonna
Right.
keep going. But what I was saying, everybody, is that he's gonna give his information. He's gonna give his information at the end, and also my information, just in case you want to reach out to him, because as he said, it's a lot of. Okay, so also gifts and abilities. Do you think we sometimes fail to use or utilize that in the planning process, because God gives us the gifts and abilities, you know, and planning is sometimes one, you know, do you run into that sometimes that they don't know how to actually tap into that to go to the next step?
That is an amazing question. I love that. I'm actually on the board of a school, a charter school in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work with charter schools because that's but here's the thing. Many of our schools do not tap into the genius of our children. I was sharing with some educators the other day. I share with them often that many times our boards, especially our black and brown boards, are labeled in the school as being disruptive or what have you, because they don't know how to address them. Boys are not going to sit still. They're always moving around. That's what boys do. It's not like they've been a problem. It's just that's how they are. And so we educate teachers. We do workshops on how to educate our children. Okay, boys are educated differently than girls are. Okay, different ethnic groups are educated differently. There are different learning styles of students. So in our program, all of those things are interwoven into and how we deal with our students, even in this program.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Are you still with me?
Yes, I'm still with you.
I got to keep making sure. Okay.
That's
Okay.
right.
Now, the meat of what they keep asking. Okay. How can they reach you? Because that I'm seeing that come through several times. They want to make sure they get in touch with you and maybe meet with you one-on-one or with your group. Because like I said, this is some good stuff. It's a lot of stuff. So tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, one way you can reach me is by phone. That's 800-811-4546, and my extension is 10. That's 800-811-4546, extension 10. That's one way you can reach me. You can email me at as in Anthony, my first name, Anthony, as in a weeks at collegeplanningtoday.com. collegeplanningtoday.com. Okay? And so, and also you can reach me on social media. I am on Facebook. Many people go in my message, they message me all the time. They message me about things and ask me questions. So, and I tend to respond very quickly.
Good, yes. And also, family, in case you did not get all that again, you can also reach out to me, and you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/Roz Real Talk Now. That's the first way. You can also email me, in him _forever at yahoo.com. And you can go to to YouTube, Real Talk Now Roz, and you can see this episode again, and also the other episodes that we have presented in the past. But like I said, this is some awesome information, and this is information that we really need to get out. So what I'm going to do is make sure I rebroadcast it too, because we need to get this information out. So, but I want to thank you so much for that. But before I go, I want to make sure that if you said everything you need to say, because we have time.
Amen.
You're
Yeah,
good.
let me say this. It would be a sin before God if I don't tell them the rest of these steps. I say I must go tell them the rest of these steps. The fifth step of our program is financial. Okay, so we work with scholarships. We have over 250 scholarships in our program. We work with organizations on the ground. We talk to individuals in the community to bring money to you, because the goal is to use government money first, to use private monies from organizations in your community, Microsoft. I'm not gonna name all these organizations, to get their money, and then thirdly is to use money from organizations close to you, like your church. Maybe it's your church, or maybe where your parents work. Okay, and then fourthly, we use money from the colleges. There are endowments, there is multi-millions of dollars in colleges and universities that they will never tell you about, but we know how to go get it. It's called gifting and leveraging. Okay, and then by the time we get through all that, then we'll get to your money. We'll get to your mom and dad money by that time. Okay, but the goal is to use everybody else's money first before we get to your money. Isn't that something? So that's the fifth step of our program. The sixth step of our program is colleges and universities. You do not go to a college because they won the national football championship last year. That is not a reason. Or because your boyfriend or girlfriend goes there. That's not why we go to college. Go to a particular college. So we're going to work on getting you to a college that offers you the most money and it offers you a major. Okay, that's step 6. Step 7 is internships. One of the biggest sins of colleges today is they allow students to go to school for 4 years or 5 years, and they don't offer them offer them an internship, because without an internship, you do not have experience, and you right back to where you were before you started school. Okay, so in our program, we work with your college and university to get an internship for you, or we provide an internship for you through our organizations and our partnership. But you need at least 2 internships when you graduate. Otherwise, your degree becomes obsolete after 2 to 3 years. Okay, I hope you got that. Okay, now, step 8 is this. I tell people all the time, when I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, I went to this thing called Sunday school. You know, I went to Sunday school and they taught me how to act and how to be a good, productive, moral citizen. You know, but today, some people are skipping out on church. They're skipping out on getting those ethical classes and lessons. So in our program, we have in step 8, we have what's called professional development. In that class, in that provision, we work with our students to talk about moral character and etiquette and all those things they sometimes miss. Okay, because the reason we do that is because colleges do not want you to come there being the campus drug dealer. They don't want you being the campus drug dealer. They don't want you coming to that college running the escort service out of the college campus. They don't want you doing those things. So we talk to you in this program on how to provide etiquette. You don't go to college to end up in handcuffs. That defeats the purpose of going to school. Okay, so this is why we have that step 8. Step 9 is jobs. We work with you to get a job. When you graduate from a college or university, you should have a job. We work with you in this program to have such. And while you have that job, guess what? We have people on our staff that have worked in corporate America and Fortune 500 companies that are working with you while you're on your job to have a career. That's our 10-step process. There we go. That's it.
Of the game,
I don't know if they're hearing you, because I can't hear you right now. So
okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes. Okay.
Yes, I was saying I was jumping all around and I didn't hear all the steps, but I am so sorry. No, we need to make sure. And there is, we have several people who have reached out already. They want me to get your information to them. So I would definitely make sure that I get that information passed on to them, because like I said,
Okay.
this is so needed, so needed. I want you to give me your closing thoughts now.
this is my closing thought. We must practice what we preach. We are living in a very critical time. The Bible says we're living in perilous times, and we certainly are living in perilous times. And when I look at what I do every day, it's not a job for me. It's a ministry for me. And you know, I started this in my own home with my brother. I have a brother that's a doctor right now. I'm not gonna say too much. He said I tell him too much of his business. But I have a brother that's a doctor. He went on to go to Princeton, and then he went from Princeton to Columbia University in New York to get his degree, and he became a doctor. He went to medical school. My brother's price tag for medical school was $430,000. That was his price tag. My brother's walking around debt-free from school. He doesn't owe a dime.
Oh, wow.
Because we walked him through every step, me and my father and my other siblings, we walked him through this program to show him what he needed to do to get scholarships in the whole 9, actually the whole 10, right? And also I have a son that went to college. He went to college and graduated magna cum laude, and he doesn't owe a dime as well. He doesn't owe a dime to college. And people think, how did you avoid all this debt and all this? Well, because they followed the 10-step process. So it worked. I practiced it on my own family because I know if it can work with them, it can work with other people. I even went to college myself. All my family went to college. My mother and father and all 10 of them are my siblings. All of us went to college and graduated, okay? So we know a little bit about college. Okay, so I want to encourage you, and also trade schools. Roger, you didn't ask me that question, but we also help you with trade schools. Mm-hmm. We help you with trade schools, and also if you just want to become an entrepreneur, you know, you want to know how to run your own business. We also have individuals that help you with that as well.
Wow. Yes. Thank you for saying that, because we did discuss that before, that, you know, some people, you know, college is not for everybody, but they still want a career. So
that's right.
Yes, that is a needed thing. Thank you for bringing that back to my attention. Yes, definitely. Now, family, like I said, if you did not get all of Mr. Weeks' information, make sure you reach out to me, either Facebook, email, and just, you know, because we got to get this information out. It's a must. It's a must.
Right.
Mr. Weeks, Anthony, my friend, thank you so much. I appreciate you. What I want you to do, I want you to stay right there, okay?
Okay.
Make it a good one, family. Okay.